Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today you find me out in the garden. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's really warm actually. And today I'm going to be using the Pentax 645 to do some macro photography out in the garden, mount it on a tripod, etc. Before I do that, I want to give you a quick overview of the camera. I did introduce it in another video a couple of days ago where we were talking about how to load a film back. This is that back loaded with Ilford HP5. This is a back that's new to me, or an insert that's new to me. It came from Japan, so I want to check that it's actually flat, doesn't have any issues, and when it's in focus in the viewfinder it's actually in focus on the film plane. So I'll give you a quick overview of the camera. This is where the film back goes in, or the insert goes in. I showed you in the loading video how they come out. You just lift this up and turn it. I won't do that because it is advanced to frame number 1, as you can see in this this viewfinder window up here. I'll tilt it out of the sun. It's on the first exposure. Very simple camera, has a built-in grip. The grip contains 6 AA batteries that fit in the bottom here. There is a socket for external power if needed. And this little screw we'll talk about a little bit later. It is detachable, but you need it on for the camera to work. On the top we have a shutter release button, and it's also threaded for a cable release. For those of you who don't know, a cable release is basically a thing of a certain length, and when you push on one end it comes out the other end, and that's what triggers the shutter. So it means that you haven't got to touch the shutter release button to fire the shutter, so you're not going to shake the camera. That's the idea behind it. There isn't a self timer on this camera. It's not really designed for that sort of photography. On this side here we also have a depth of field preview. So what that does, basically, same as on most all cameras, is it stops down the iris in the lens. So you can see there's the iris closing down and opening back up. Depth of field preview, so you can see what your focus area is like. On the top we have a power switch for on and off, so we turn it on there. Nothing really changes particularly very much. Even when it's turned off it still displays this information in the viewfinder, but we will turn it on. Up and down buttons, you use these for making your selection. Display window over here, as you can see, it's on auto, set on 5.6, and on the lens, these are all what they call A lenses. They have an A for automatic function. So in this instance the camera is actually going to set the aperture, in this case to 5.6. You can take it off of A and you can manually set the aperture. As you can see, it goes from 3.5 all the way down to 32, and it locks into the A position. Oh, excuse me, my umbrella's just fallen over. Okay, on this side the first thing we need to do is to set the film speed. You'll see a button marked ISO. If I push that you can actually see it is on 400, but if I push the up button it starts to go up. It goes all the way up to 6400. I push the down arrow, it goes all the way down to 6. So 6 to 6400 is the ISO range, or ASA range. So I wanted to set that, so I've gone too far now. I had to set it to 400, which is what we call box speed. It's quite a sunny day, so I'm going to be using fairly small apertures, which is what I want anyway for macro work. We have exposure compensation, which they call plus or minus EF. And if I push that, it then gives me +1 stop, +2 stops, +3 stops. It doesn't give you partial stops, unfortunately. It only gives you full stops of exposure compensation, which is a bit of a drawback. Other cameras, and I think the later versions, have it in third of a stop, which is a lot better. We have another button here, mode, and this determines the mode that it's in. At the moment it is in aperture priority. If I switch it again, pressing the up button, it then goes auto, that's shutter speed priority. So if I take my finger off, it allows me to choose the shutter speed. And if I go again, 60 is the 60th mode, which is the flash synchronization speed. And if I come back down again, aperture priority, this is the program mode, in which case it will select and set both the shutter speed and the aperture, which is quite a useful mode. And I think that is about it. So yeah, we've got the program mode, aperture priority, the 60 mode, or is that the shutter priority mode? That's the shutter priority mode. And there is a 60th mode somewhere as well for flash sync. I don't know why I'm not getting that. You normally get that when you're in manual. I'll turn that to manual and then go into mode. There we are, manual. So that's where you can set the shutter speed and the aperture, and it will say OK in the viewfinder when you actually match it. But I'm going to leave the lens on A. We have an LED inside the viewfinder that displays the shutter speed and the aperture. That's the only information that you get in the viewfinder. I don't know whether you'll be able to see it because this camera is not very good, and I'm not very good at it. You can see it in the bottom corner, it's not in focus, but you can see the display. And this button turns that on and off, this LED button. You can turn it off if you want to. And then we also have a screen illumination. It's so bright out here that I don't think you're going to see it illuminate, but it lights up the LCD panel. So if you're doing night photography, for example, it makes it a bit easier. We have a X-synced hot shoe on the top, like I say, a 60th of a second. It's a focal plane shuttered camera, and it has speeds from 15 seconds through to 1000. If I go into mode, shutter speed, I can change the shutter speed from 1,000th all the way down to 15 seconds. So from 15 seconds to 1,000th of a second. I've got to get that back into aperture mode now. There we go. We also have a eye cup and its dioptic adjuster up here, so if you like me and wear glasses, you can adjust this, so you can either keep your glasses on and adjust it, or take your glasses off and adjust it. I tend to take my glasses off. Nice big eyepiece on the back of it. Nice big bright viewfinder because it is a 645 camera. Right, on this side, oh, it's a heavy beast. This one's not as heavy as the 6.7, but it's still quite a heavy camera. This is where you'd attach your camera strap. I don't tend to have camera straps on my cameras. I don't particularly like them. I think they get in the way. They're more of a nuisance than anything else, and you really don't want cameras this sort of size hanging around your neck. It's going to make you have a stoop. The top, we have a PC socket for flash synchronization, so that's with an external flash gun or studio. I'm not a big fan of putting flash guns on hot shoes. The only reason I'd use a hot shoe is if I've got a dedicated flash that can communicate with the camera, like some of the Pentax flashes do. Underneath that you've got multiple exposure switch, so that would cock the shutter but not advance the film. We have a shutter cocked indicator. As you can see, it's red, so that shows us that the shutter is cocked. We have a tripod bush on this side, and we also have a slot for putting on other accessories. I'm not really quite sure what goes on there, to be honest. If you're using it that way up, then it's going to be hidden by the tripod, but I'm not sure. Behind here there's a little thing that you can take out if your batteries fail. You can take that part I showed earlier off the bottom, that part off of here, and then you can use that screwed into there to advance the film, so that you can unload the film from the camera. Only really useful in emergency situations. And it does give you, when it's cocked the shutter, it gives you a 50th of a second as kind of like a backup speed. There we can see the lens. Today I've got the 150 on there because I want to do some macro work. So I've got a 150 on there with a built-in hood. Quite a nice lens. It's a 150 3.5. The manual focus, the later versions, the 645N and the N2 are autofocus, although they will work with the manual lenses, but they'll give you focus confirmation. To mount and dismount a lens, just put that cap back on there so I don't end up touching the front element. I don't have a filter on this one. I usually put a UV filter on, but I haven't got one on this. Should have, really. Oh, let's put the cap on. Okay, on the front you've got this button down here. This is how you'd remove the lens. You push the button in and you twist the whole lens anti-clockwise. Comes off. It's just a bayonet mount. It does have electrical contacts. You need to make sure they're clean. And there inside you can see the mirror and the focusing aids. It does have a split image rangefinder type system, as well as micro prisms and all the usual sort of manual focus aid tools, which is really useful. Right, because I'm doing macro, I want to focus closer than this lens is designed to focus at standard. The closest focus on this lens is going to be 1.4. I'm assuming that's 1.4 meters. Yes, it is 1.4 meters or 4.6 feet. I want to focus closer than that, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use an extension tube. Basically, I'm going to move this lens further away, and by moving it further away, that's going to enable it to focus closer. The downside is that you're going to have to calculate the light loss because the light has to travel further. There's all kinds of mathematical equations that you can use to work all this out, but I like using TTL because it does it automatically for you. So this is a set of tubes. These are Pentax extension tubes designed for this camera, you can see, and they call them extension tube A, and they come in sizes 1, 2 and 3, varying lengths depending on the degree of magnification that you want. I normally start with the biggest one and then work my way backwards. So these again will just exactly the same as the lens, same mount, same electrical contacts. So these are actually proper coupled tubes. You can buy tubes that don't have all the coupling in them, but they're, I think, more of a pain to use. These are quite expensive. They're about £100 a set. Again, from Japan. Most of this Pentax stuff seems to come from Japan. It's not really locally available here in the UK. There's no glass in this. It's just a physical extension, so it shouldn't degrade the image at all because there's no glass getting in the way. And the glass isn't going to reflect light or anything anyway because there's no glass in there. So to mount this, there'll be a red dot somewhere on the back of it if I can find it. I can never see these red dots. There we go. There's a red dot on the mount. That goes to the red dot on the camera, as you can see. And then you just twist it clockwise until it locks. And then obviously you can stack these, all three or any combination of the three, to get the degree of magnification that you want. So I say there is a way of working out the length of the tube and the focal length of the lens to work out the magnification, but I do it by trial and error. I try it, and if it's not right, then I'll try a different combination. There's also bellows, which is a constantly variable distance. If any of you see the old sort of style view cameras, they have bellows between the film plane and the lens, and that enables them to get very, very close to things. And also, it's just a one-piece unit. It's not set like these are. So that's our setup for today. I'll take off the lens cap and pull out the lens hood, and there we are. We're ready to take some macro photographs. Put the cover back on this to keep it keep the contacts and everything clean. So that's a sort of an introduction and overview of the Pentax 645. Quite a nice system, quite underrated, fairly affordable actually compared to something like the Pentax 645, which is hugely expensive. The Mamiya's, the advantage with them really is the interchangeable viewfinders. You can have a waist level finder. The downside with this one is it is a fixed pentaprism, but I'm used to that. If I want to use a waist level finder, I'd use a different camera. But I find this quite useful, have a pentaprism, and the TTL and the degree of automation. It kind of suits me. I'm not a big fan of autofocus, so I don't really see any advantage in the higher price for the N and the N2. This quite adequately fills my needs. So now I'm going to go off and see if I can find some flowers and things to photograph, and then I think in the next video I'm going to show you how to develop the film. We'll go through the development process and see what the results are like. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to comment questions etc down below, and please like and subscribe and all that usual YouTube stuff, share it about and all that kind of thing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.